Hello again. I'm Tracy, and if you haven't met me before, I try to talk about all things autism, ADHD, and other friends, as I like to call them, that come along for the ride. And I've been talking to people a lot about kind of how we need a sort of manual. I talk a lot about translation guide, things we wish people knew. But even when we try to explain, there seems to be a problem of, I've spoken before about, I have a recent video about how we seem to be communicating on different frequencies, but also I think it's greater than that because, as I'm going to explain in a minute, neurotypicals, people that are not autistic, ADHD, or many of the other neurological differences that we find ourselves with, they see things completely differently. They receive information, a lot of it based on body language, and therefore what they see is what they see no matter what I say. So I've written a short piece about this, and I'm hoping we can all write our own similar things that we want people to know, and perhaps we can self-publish something. So number one, I would like to say to people, do I look capable to you? Are you seeing and hearing capable? Do I seem to be calm and confident? Even quite clever sometimes in certain situations. I've done really well, haven't I? I've spent over 50 years perfecting this thing, and so I can do it really well. At least for the brief moment that you see and hear me. And even if there is a glimpse of the truth, the original image remains, and I will be seen as a capable person who ought to behave better. The truth is that often I am incapable, unconfident, and probably not coping at all. But I'm able to present in an acceptable and expected way for the benefit of everyone else. I learned very early in life that I needed to try and be what was wanted in order to avoid the rejection and criticism that I fear. The problem has always been that I don't understand what is wanted or how to be, and so the dreaded rejection follows me wherever I go, no matter what I do or what I say or how hard I try not to be me. Of course, for over 50 years I didn't know who I was or why. I didn't recognise the mask that I'd created, so I had no chance to take it off. Chasing the attention and affection that never came left me without boundaries, leaving me easy prey to the users and abusers who I never see coming or going. I didn't know that people can't see and hear what I thought they could see and hear. I didn't know that I was different and that my words weren't enough. I thought that my words told the story and that the feelings would be clear if expressed by the words. It was only when a specialist asked me how I was telling my story without any emotions that I had to confront a completely new reality. A reality in which I was not being seen and heard. A reality in which I was seen and heard as capable and confident and coping. I had to look in the mirror and recognise that what I saw was something completely different. I saw a woman in pain and distress who was struggling to cope and not understanding why she didn't fit in and why she seemed to be rejected despite trying so hard not to be. For many of us who feel and see and hear the world differently, we create a sort of survival mask. This is often referred to as masking or camouflaging. This in itself is not special as a skill because everyone has to do it, or at least try to. Everyone has to try and change their words and demeanour to suit the situation and the audience. And everyone has to do a little compromising and conforming. But for most people, I now know, this is a means to an end. They know how to talk to the boss and they know how not to. For me, and I think many like me, the mask isn't a choice because we don't know we're putting it on. We just become who we think we need to be in a desperate attempt to finally be accepted and acceptable, and then spend hours and days and years wondering why we are not. I presumed that it was wrong to complain because I knew that things could be worse. My scale of reference is global and historical. Sound weird? What's really weird is that I thought everyone was living like this. I always found it very difficult to understand questions about pain. A doctor might ask for the pain scale from 1 to 10. How would I know what each number might feel like, and how would I know how others feel pain? What a ridiculous question, I would tell the doctor, who then didn't like me, and I would once again be left asking what I had done wrong and bad. When asked about pain, I might consider the men in the trenches, perhaps with missing limbs, or overcome with mustard gas, or burnt in an inferno. And if they are at pain number 10, then mine must be only around a 2 at best. To compare myself with a child having to scavenge along a squalid train line in monsoon rains would be very selfish, I presumed. My life was therefore perfectly okay, I would say. No one ever told me it was okay to say that maybe it wasn't. Some days I struggled to get out of bed and everything was too painful. The lights hurt and the water in the shower felt like shards of glass. Repeatedly I asked the doctor for help, and repeatedly I was told to stop complaining. She told me that I seemed to be coping well and that I should stop complaining and go home and get on with it. She couldn't see or hear me. My words were articulate and my composure seemed confident and capable. I recognise this now. But even worse is that when I complain or explain, it is taken as being argumentative or offensive. Apparently the neurotypical world presumes very easily that the emotions of another are in some way an attack on them. I'm still trying to figure this one out. I could ask a neurotypical, but they might feel offended by the question, I guess. But even understanding all of this hasn't helped at all. Now, I tell doctors in advance that what they will see and hear is not how I am feeling. I tell them that my words of distress are the real me and that I need to be seen and heard. They're at best bemused and at worst offended. They don't like to be told what to see and hear. If I tell them that I am autistic, then they tell me that I don't seem to be. This unhelpful comment upsets and infuriates me. But then the rabbit in the headlights of fear takes over. I'm frozen while I panic and assess whether to challenge and explain. My throat tenses and I can feel my heartbeat out of control, and I start to shake and sweat and want to collapse and cry. If I did any of that, then maybe, just maybe, they might believe me. But I don't. I can't. As soon as I leave the room, I will hide in my car and rush home to lie sobbing in bed, even though the mattress feels like concrete and the bedding tortures me with intermittent ice and flames. Eventually, I found a specialist myself and was first diagnosed with fibromyalgia and then complex post-traumatic stress disorder. But even these specialists didn't know what to do with me. I wasn't the typical presentation, I was told, and I did seem to cope rather well compared to other people. I'd never asked for help before because I had no idea that I needed any. And when my body stepped in and forced me to admit that something was wrong, my brain overruled and told me to carry on, as I had always done. Then, a kindly lady informed me that I was autistic. It is the autistic way to kindly inform. I know that now. But I also know now that what I always believed to be kindly informing was often being perceived as offensive and received as criticism. As I describe in my piece about communicating on different frequencies, how can we know and recognise what we don't know and often can't recognise in ourselves? When we read the wrong things and listen to the wrong people, we have no hope of recognising ourselves or understanding autism and ADHD for what they really are, and more importantly, what they most definitely are not. I've created a short guide for better recognition and identification, and I am trying to create a sort of translation guide, but it would be great to have lots more input from lots of other people for that. I read lots of the wrong books, for sure, and met with far too many specialists who knew nothing about autism but sadly believed that they did. I, of course, arrived armed with journals and autobiographies, and I even completed a postgraduate diploma in autism studies, just to be sure. I thought my kindly way of informing them would help. I expected them to be relieved that I had done all of the research to help them out. But of course, they felt offended and criticised, and then they didn't like me. It's as simple as that, although I don't understand it at all. If I look and sound capable and confident, and even give a vague impression of coping, they make up their mind immediately, and my words go unheard. Research suggests that up to 75% or more is conveyed by body language in the neurotypical world. Using my words to describe me left me feeling misunderstood and rejected. They can't see and hear what they can't see and hear. Exactly the same as us. The autistic community say nothing about us without us. And whilst this is admirable, I don't think we stand a chance of being seen and heard if we can't convince the neurotypical world of who we really are. Without them, I worry that society is a long way from being friendly to autism, ADHD, and those of us who feel and see and hear the world differently. If you've been watching, listening to me today, then again, thank you for joining me. It would be great if we could put something together. More voices, especially the unheard voices, especially people who are struggling in environments that discriminate, debilitate, and really often are too afraid to disclose. That would be great. You can find me here. You can find me at my website, feelingtheworlddifferently.co.uk, and of course I have my short guide that I self-published at the moment at cost price on Amazon, Feeling the World Differently, but I have got a much larger book that I'm going to try and publish properly, if anybody knows a handy publisher. And of course share stories, because until we do, we are not going to change and challenge the way that the world sees us. Thanks for joining me today. Bye for now.